How you doing there? Chevre, listen, there's a little baby outside going insane. The thing is, I have noise canceling headphones. Don't hear it. So that's good. Oh my gosh, you would have driven me nuts, Chevre. You would have heard about it. Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Pei Vav, Daf 86 of Masechta BavaKama. Friends, friends. This is going to be a really big daf. Wow. Chevre, I think this is going to be a really big daf. Oh my gosh. Wow. Chevre, this is going to be a big old daf because I want to do a lot today. I'm feeling ambitious. I want to start on Daf Pei Amud Beis. We got about half the Amud to do on Pei Amud Beis. And then I want to do all of Pei Vav, which is not a small daf. And then I want to get halfway through Pei Zayin Amud Aleph. Oh, that is ambitious. Okay? Y'all on board? Hope so. Let's jump in. We're going to start on Daf Pei Amud Beis. Oh my gosh. Wait, do I hear that little baby through my noise-canceling headphones? I think I do. Holy cow. Oh my gosh. 1 second. Holy cow. Wow, that baby's going nuts. Oh, wow. Okay, but I think once I start, I won't hear it. But wow, that is stark. Okay. Shevis ron also kilu shom kishun. So when it comes to Shevis, when it comes to paying for this missed work, so we view it as if he's a gourd watchman. A guy who watches cucumbers. Watches cucumbers. You ever watched a cucumber? I think cucumbers are even less active than ants. They don't do much. The rabbis taught. Also kilu shomi kishun. So we see him as if he's a cucumber watchman. If you're gonna say, hey, but that's not fair. This guy, he's not a cucumber watchman. He's a fellow who draws water from wells and gets paid for that. It's a higher paying gig. Inami also b'shliach v'shakel agor. It could be a delivery person and make more money that way. So we're saying, Babylon. So we're saying it's not fair. It's not fair. He's not right. Why is he getting paid minimum wage? Normally he gets paid more. So midas adin lo lak. So we say no, it is fair. Shekvar nosan lo tmeyado v'tmeyraglu. We already gave him nezek. We evaluated what's his value prior to the injury and what's his value post injury. And I think the point is that we take into cheshbon what he was able to do before and what he's able to do now. So we're already paying him a sum that takes into account the fact that he's gonna get paid for what he normally makes and what he can no longer make. Now it's just the fact that Lemaisa every day, he's just sitting around, so we at least pay him minimum wage. All right. Rava said, "Kata es yado nosen lo dmei yado." So if his hand gets plopped off, so we give him the value of his hand. V'sheves ron also kilu shom kishun. In terms of v'sheves, we view it as if he's a cucumber watchman. Shiber es raglo nosen lo dmei raglo. If he breaks his leg, we give him the value of his leg. What does it mean that he breaks his leg? That's unclear to me, because we're going to talk, I think now, in a few minutes, we're going to talk about injuries that are temporary. So is breaking your leg temporary? Is breaking your leg permanent? What's it saying? Maybe it's talking about a permanent break? No, so we give him the value of his leg. V'sheves ron also kilu shomer es ha-pesach. In terms of sheves, we pay him like somebody who just guards a door, because a a cucumber watchman needs to walk around to all the cucumbers and watch them. Now, if he broke his leg, he can't do the walking part. So here is just shomer es Pesach. He guards a door. So when you guard a door, you just sit there and you stare. And okay, you could do that. These are interesting professions. Sime es eno, if he plops out his eye, nosin lo dme eno, so you give him the value of his eye. V'sheves or noso kiluhu matchinu b'rechaim, and in terms of sheves, we give him the what he would make as a grinder. Somebody who like grinds, like oh gosh, man, what's with the bamblions? As if he like grinds like wheat and stuff, and I guess you don't technically need to be able to see, I guess, what you're doing. You just have to kind of, I guess, keep the grinder grinding. Chersho, if you make him a cheresh, notin lo dmei kulo, then you give him his full value. I think if I like is basically because he becomes like deaf and dumb, so then it's key like you killed him. You pay his whole value. Okay. But Rava asks, Kata es yado v'lo amadu. What if they plopped off his hand, but they didn't evaluate it? They didn't evaluate the nezek, the tsar, the ripoy, etc. Shiba es ragla plopped off his, or I guess he maybe didn't plop off, but plopped. He gave a knock on the leg. I don't know exactly. No, he broke the leg. He made the leg useless. Friends, what do you think? Okay, it says he broke the legs. He broke the leg. But they didn't take him to Bezin. They didn't figure out what's owed. Simiaseno plopped out the eye, and they didn't evaluate what he's owed. And then he makes him a cheresh. Okay, makes him deaf and dumb. So mau. So now what? Do we say that he could still sort of collect incrementally? Or does he only collect, where things stand now, where he's a cheresh? So do we say that, well, since they hadn't yet evaluated him, so now when it comes to evaluate him, we do it all at once. We give him all in one lump sum. Or perhaps, or maybe, no, we still evaluate them one at a time. We don't just do it all together in one lump sum, one lump sitting, but rather we go back and we say, okay, let's take a look at the, what do we start with? The hand, and collect all the payments for the hand. Then you can collect all the payments for the leg, then all the payments for the eye, and then, so like we do one at a time. Nafkamina, what's the difference? The boy lemeis of lay, sa'ar uvoshes the chochad chada v'chada. The nafkamina is that, well, if we do it one at a time, so then he would also get the pain and the embarrassment for each of those injuries separately. Granted that we're not going to give him the nezek and the ripoy and the sheves for each one, we're not going to give to him. Because since once he makes him a cheresh, he's giving him the value, his whole value. It's like he killed him. And he's giving him everything anyways, right? As a cheresh, I guess, it's like he killed the guy, he's useless now, and therefore you give him all of his payments. So what more is there to pay? What does Rashi say? Rashi says, nafkamina, about, 2/3 of the way through Rashi's, nafkamina, the mace of the tzar boshes echad, aval ripoy lo, but not ripoy, sharei lo nisrapi bin time, because he didn't get healed in the meantime. So I guess there wouldn't be separate ripoys, I guess. V'sheves lo, not sheves sharei nosin lo demei kol ma shoya shav mitchila vareu avdo, right. Because I guess since he's basically paying for his entire value, once you make him a cheresh, so it's basically, I guess, like he becomes his eved, and then I guess there's no longer any shevis because I guess he owns him as an eved. Okay. Tzaru voshes mios dechol chada v'chada yoiv. Okay, but you would, right, if we say that you pay for each one separately, so then each one would have its own tsar and boshes. To havalei tzaru voshes, because each one has its own pain and its own embarrassment. If it enters your mind to say, and if you're going to say, Kevan delo amadu, that since they didn't evaluate him along the way, so just give him one lump sum. Amadu, what if they did evaluate him, but he didn't get paid yet? Since they evaluate him for each one, so he can receive the payment for each one. Or since, but he hasn't actually gotten paid yet, so he hasn't collected the value yet, so maybe then it is all paid at once. Take we say, ich weiß nicht. By Rabba, okay, so now Rabba asks the kasha, Sheves apochaso bidomim mau. So if be'etzem, he got hit, a knack, that basically it's a knack that it's a temporary knack. It knocks him out of work. He can't go to work now while it heals, but it's temporary. It's a temporary knack. So now what? Okay. So by Rabba Sheves apochso bedomim. So meaning, he gets a knack, a type of knack that he can't work now. So like technically, I guess if he was being sold as an eved right now, he wouldn't be able to work, but it's gonna heal. So echidami, what's an example? For example, if he hit him, if he got knocked on the hand, but the hand doesn't plop off, it just kind of gets withered or something. But it's going to unwither. It's going to heal. Well, since it's ultimately going to heal, so he doesn't give him anything. Or perhaps but currently at this very moment, he doesn't have a hand that's usable, so his value currently is less. Tashma if a fellow knocks his father or his mother and does not make them bleed. Now, if he makes them bleed, so then he's chayiv misa. But if he doesn't make them bleed, or somebody who wounds his friend on Yom Kippur. Now, on Yom Kippur, there's no misas bezdin. So chayiv b'chulin. So in both of these cases, by knocking your father or mother, or by wounding your friend on Yom Kippur, there would be all 5 payments. Now, tell me, what does it mean that a fellow knocks his father or mother but does not make a chabura? So what does that look like? Is it not talking about a scenario where he knocks one of his parents on the hand, but it's going to heal? Vikatanin, it says chayv b'chulan, and we're saying that he's going to be chayv for all of the things. So there you have it. That in an injury that's going to heal, you're still chayv for the 5 things. Amir Yochav Ma'iskin, we say here, what are we talking about? Kigon shecher sho v'losabo chabur. Well, no, you could say this is talking about that it was permanent damage. It wasn't temporary damage. It was permanent damage. For example, he made one of his parents deaf, and so there's no blood, there's no wound, but it's a permanent damage, and that's why he's going to be chayiv for all of these things. But 1 second, but Rabba says that if a fellow makes his father deaf, nerog, so the child is going to be killed. Lefisha efshir lachrisha below chabur, because it's impossible to make somebody deaf, to make him a cheresh, without also creating a wound. Tipsa dedama nafla lebuudne, because he becomes deaf because some blood dripped into his ear and made him deaf. So therefore, don't tell me that that when he damages his parents but doesn't make a chabura, it's talking about it. Well, it was permanent because he made him deaf, but there was no chabura. Deaf makes a chabura. Okay, so it can't be talking about making his parents deaf. So elacha, my skin in here. What are we talking about? Kigon shegelcha. He shaved his father bald. Now his father's bald. But 1 second, if he shaves the father bald, so that's the kind of thing that's going to grow back, and that's exactly our question. So if that's the case, it sounds like you would be chayiv for all these things in something that's going to grow back. No, it's talking about he somehow some kind of thing that removes all the depilatory or something. So some kind of thing that like gets rid of all the hair and it doesn't come back. So therefore it's permanent, but there's no chabura. All right. So tsar the isle kartufni bereshe. So it's painful because now he gets because this depilatory. I don't know if that's what it was called, but there's something like that. It's a similar word. I don't know what it means, but the point is it has something to do with like making hair go away and never come back. So this I'm going to call it a depilatory. Again, I don't know if that's a word, but I think it's depilatory, dilapidatory. Depilatory, so I'm going to call it depilatory. I don't know if it might not be a word, but it's a thing. Depilatory in this context is a thing that makes your hair go away and not come back. And he cries out because of these cracks in his head from the depilatory. Ripui. Deboya asuye, and he needs to get healed. So there's the ripoy. Sheves to have a market beikuve, and the sheves is because his father was a clown, and now he can't work now as a clown. Deboya machve gabne areshav lo machve me'anu katufne, and it's very hard for him to make his head moves with these kartufne. So therefore he can't be a clown. Boshes ain l'cha boshes gadol mizeh. In terms of boshes, is nothing more embarrassing than this. I guess having a depilatory. Umilsa the boy. Okay, so we can. So again, we're talking about a scenario where there's no chabura, but it's still permanent damage. Okay. Now, umilsa the boy le rabba pshita le labai. So now this shaila that Rabba asks, that what happens when it's damage that is going to revoit, damage that's temporary. So you chai for these things. So Rabba wasn't sure, but his students Abaye and Rava, they were sure. So again, umilsa the boya le Rabba, this kasha that Rabba has about these temporary injuries, pshita le Abaye laachki, so the Rava laachki. So it was obvious to Abaye. On one, he took kind of one side, he took this in one direction, and Rava took it in the other direction. The Itmar, who stated, he called Yadav Tzomso, if a fellow gives him a knack on the hand and it withers, the Sofalachzor, but it's going to unwither, it's going to heal. Abaye Omer says, Abaye, no sin lo sheves gedola v'sheves ketane. He pays nezek, and also, right, I think that's what sheves gedola is, right? Sheves gedola to meyado. Yeah, I think that's him nezek. So he pays him nezek and also sheves, right? Sheves katana is just exactly sheves. Okay, so there you have it. So according to Abaye, you get nezek as well as sheves. Rava says Rava eino nosin lo elo dmei shivto shebachol yom v'yom. Rava says no, you're not going to get paid because it's going to return, because it's going to heal. So you don't get paid like for the same thing like if you plop out an eye. If you plop out an eye, the eye is not coming back, so you have to mamish pay the value of the eye. In this case, when you knock the hand, but the hand's gonna heal, so then in that case you don't pay nezek. But instead of sheves, meaning sheves, we're saying is minimum wage only because you already got nezek, the value of the hand. In this case, you're not getting the value of the hand because it's only temporary. So in that case, you actually pay your regular salary, right? So if whatever his salary normally is, so he would continue to receive that salary, and that would be his sheves since he's not getting nezek. Itmar was stated akotea yad evet ivri shel chaveru, a fellow who plops off the hand of his friend's evet ivri. Abaye Omer says Abaye nosin lo sheves gedola le'eved. So the nezek goes to the eved v'sheves kitana l'rav, and the sheves, the payment for missing work goes to the adon. Okay, so the actual value of the hand will go to the eved ivri, but the missed work wages will go to the adon. Rava Omer says Rava, Hakol yunosin le'eved, you give all of the payment to the eved, v'lokach ben karka, and then he should use that money to purchase land, v'arav ochel peris, and then the adon can eat from the peris of the land, All right, fine. Pshita piches eitzel atzmo ve'etzel rabba lo piches echidami de poske l'reish une or l'reish nechiri akol atzmo. Let's read that again. So pshita, it's obvious that in the scenario piches eitzel atzmo ve'etzel rabba lo piches, that in the scenario where all of the damage was only to the Eved Ivri and it doesn't affect the Adon at all, hechidami, for example, de poske l'reish une, if he if he sliced off the tip of his ear, or if he sliced off the tip of his nose, so akol atzma, then everything would go to the Eved Ivri, because it doesn't affect his ability to work by his master. He's got to put on a band-aid. So then it would all go to the Eved Ivri. But piches eitzel rabba plug to the Abai v'Rava. But if it does affect the Adon that he's unable to work, so that's the machlokas Abai and Rava about who gets, how they would kind of figure out the sheves, and that would go to the Adon. I said the Mishnah, Boshes hakol lefi hamivayish v'hamisbayish. That when it comes to Boshes, embarrassing, so it depends. It's not objective. It depends who's doing the embarrassing, who's getting embarrassed, right? I guess the most expensive embarrassment would, I guess, be if like a lowly fellow embarrasses a highly fellow, right? Kind of like, a shtunk embarrasses, what's the opposite of a shtunk? Well, I guess in a certain sense it would be a knutch. The opposite of a shtunk is a knutch. That's great. Alright. Alright. So if a shtunk embarrasses a knutch, so if a shtunk embarrasses a knutch, so then there's going to be a lot of boshes. But if it's punkt fakir, if a knutch embarrasses a shtunk, so the shtunk, what does he care? So a knutch. All right, a shtunk and a knutch makes sense. Let's go weiter. All right. So, but it's not an objective amount, okay? It's not a flat amount. It's not always the same. It depends on who's embarrassing and who's getting embarrassed. Okay, let's go weiter. So, Mani Mas Nisan, who is the author of our Mishnah that says that it depends? Lo Reb Meir, v'lo Reb Yehuda, ela Reb Shimon, Reb Shimoni. So it's not Reb Meir, it's not Reb Yehuda, it's Reb Shimon. De Tani v'chulin roin oson ki'ilu eim b'nei chorin shodim minichseim. So everybody, no matter who is getting embarrassed, we view them in the same exact way, which is, we view it as a ben chorin, a free fellow who hit hard times. Okay, what does that even mean? But that's how we view the embarrassment. Okay, everybody's viewed as like a free fellow who hit hard times, and what is that, like embarrassing? Is that the point? That's the embarrassment. Shem b'nei Avram, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov, that they're all, after all, the children of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And okay, so I guess that's how we evaluate Boshes. Divrei Meir, that's Reb Meir's opinion. Reb Yehuda Omer says, Reb Yehuda, Agadol lefi godlo, v'akotin lefi kotno. Bum bum. Reb Yehuda says it's subjective. Depends. If you have a knutch, so then the Boshes is that of a knutch. It's going to be more expensive. But if it's a shtunk, so then it's the value of a shtunk. It's the Boshes for a shtunk. Shtunks don't really get that embarrassed. Reb Shimon Omer says, Reb Shimon Ashirim Ro and Oson Ki'ilu Eim B'nei Chorin Shiyordu Minichseim. So Reb Shimon says, okay, it's a shtickle subjective, a knutch, a wealthy fellow. So we view Ki'ilu, they are B'nei Chorin Shiyordu Minichseim, free fellows that hit hard times. Aniyim, poor fellows, Kipchusin Sheboyen. So then it's like the mamish, the lowest amount. We view it like the kind of the lowest possible amount of Boshes. Kipchusin, like the poorest of the poor, I guess. And the assumption is that this is that we're talking about a person who doesn't get very embarrassed. So money. So who is the author of our Mishnah? Reb Meir, it can't be Reb Meir. Masnisin katoni akol lefi hamivayish v'hamizbayish. Our Mishnah says it's subjective. It depends, who's doing the embarrassing, who's doing the getting embarrassed. Reb Meir, kulu b'adei adodin ninu. But Reb Meir says it doesn't matter. We view everybody exactly the same, like a ben chorin shiyordu minichseim. If you're Rabbi Yehuda, and the problem with saying that it's Rabbi Yehuda, Masnisin Katani Amavayish Sasuma Chayiv, the Mishnah is about to say, we're going to learn it on today's daf, on Pei Vav Amud Beis, that Amavayish Sasuma Chayiv, that a person who embarrasses a suma, a poor person, a person who embarrasses a blind person is Chayiv. Vilu Rabbi Yehuda, Omer says Rabbi Yehuda, Suma Ein lo boshes, that a suma does not have boshes. So we can't say that our Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda because we're going to run into trouble because the Mishnah is about to say on Pei Vav Amud Beis that a suma does not have that Mavayish is a suma chayiv. Yet it seems that Rabbi Yehuda says that a suma doesn't have boshes, in which case clearly we're not talking about Rabbi Yehuda. Elalav Reb Shimoni, rather by process of elimination, it must be that our Mishnah is Reb Shimon, right? That our Mishnah says that all depends on the on the one who's doing the embarrassing, the one who's doing the getting embarrassed. Okay, so it's subjective. And Reb Shimon also says that that there isn't an objective amount, right? For an Osher, reviewed like a Ben Chon Shard Minichasav or Shard Minichseum, and if it's a poor person, then Kipchus and Shaboy. It's a shtickle subjective. So we're going to say the author of our Mishnah is Reb Shimon. And says the Gemara, Afilu Teim Rabbi Yehuda, you can even say actually that our Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. Because Kikam Rabbi Yehuda Suma Ein Lo Boshes, that when Rabbi Yehuda says that a Suma doesn't have Boshes, that doesn't mean that you can embarrass a Suma and that's acceptable. No. Even Rabbi Yehuda would say if you embarrass a blind person, you'd be Chayiv. What it means that there's no Boshes is that if they embarrass others, they are going to be Patur. Lemishkol Mine, right, where am I? Kika'amar Rabbi Yehuda Suma Ein Lo Boshes, that's Lemishkol Mine. That is, if a blind person embarrasses somebody else, so then he would not be chayiv to pay for boshes. But if you embarrass a blind person, of course he would pay for boshes, even according to Rabbi Yehuda. So therefore, we could say that we are talking about Rabbi Yehuda. Even though, right, so even when we say that suma chayiv, Rabbi Yehuda would agree with that. But in fact, the Gemara. No, V'hamidiktani Seifa, but in that same Mishnah that we're about to learn, not about, but in a few minutes we're going to learn. V'hamidiktani Seifa, it says in that Mishnah, Hamavayish es ayoshen chayiv, that somebody who embarrasses somebody who's sleeping is chayiv. V'yoshin shebiyesh potter, right, that's what I was looking for. And a person who's sleeping, and while he's sleeping embarrasses somebody else, potter. V'lo katani suma shebiyesh potter. But the Mishnah only says somebody who's sleeping and embarrasses somebody in his sleep is potter. But we don't say anything about the blind person. So that implies that a blind person who embarrasses somebody would be chayiv. So then clearly that's unlike Reb Yehuda. That means that when it comes to that when it comes to a blind person, there's no distinction. You're going to be chayiv, according to our Mishnah, you're going to be chayiv whether you embarrass a blind person or if a blind person embarrasses somebody else, the blind person will be chayiv, which is unlike Rabbi Yehuda, because he would say that a blind person who embarrasses somebody else will be potter. So it must be that our Mishnah is Reb Shimon. Who is the author of the following Braise? A fellow was intending to embarrass a Ka'in. We're going to have to understand what a Ka'in means. But he was intending to embarrass a Ka'in, and he embarrassed a Gadol. We're going to have to understand what Ka'in and Gadol means. No saying, Legadol demei boshto shel Ka'in. Okay, so again, so he intended to embarrass a Ka'in, but he embarrassed a Gadol. So we pay to the Gadol who got embarrassed the value, right, what we would pay to a Ka'in. Levayish Eved as Ben Chorin, if he intended to be Mevayish an Eved, but ended up being Mevayish Ben Chorin, so no sin the Ben Chorin, so we pay the Ben Chorin to make Boshto Shel Eved what you would have paid the Eved. Money, who is the author of this price? V'lo Reb Meir, v'lo Reb Yehuda, v'lo Reb Shimon. Ho. It's like neither Reb Meir, nor Reb Yehuda, nor Reb Shimon. Now, it enters our mind that when we're saying Kohen and Gadol, we're not talking about small and big, young and old. No, we're talking about a person who's a wealthy fellow and a person who's an unwealthy fellow. Somebody's got a lot of property, somebody has little property. Reb Meir, now we're not talking about Reb Meir because our Omar Kulu B'Adei Adadi Ninu. It can't be Reb Meir because Reb Meir had said that everybody's boshes is going to be the same, no matter if you're a gadol or a kohen, right? No matter if you have a lot of wealth or a little wealth. So therefore, if we're making distinction between a kohen and a gadol, it can't be Reb Meir. If you're Reb Yehuda, and it can't be Reb Yehuda either. Because Rabbi Yehuda says that avadim don't have boshes, and we said in the Seifa of the Brisa that if you intended to be mevayish an eved and mevayish ben chorim, so you pay the boshes that you would pay to an eved, but an eved doesn't have boshes according to Rabbi Yehuda. The Reb Shimon, and if it's Reb Shimon or Omar, Reb Shimon had said, as we've seen in a different context, that if you intend to be mevayish one person, but you end up being mevayish a different person, you're potter. My time, how come? Kiktala, because Reb Shimon treats it in the same way that he treats killing somebody. Maktala ad miskavin lay, just like if somebody kills somebody else, he's only going to be chayiv if he intended to kill that victim and not if he intended to kill somebody else. Dichsev, as the Apostle says, V'arav lo v'kam olav, that he has to ambush him and come upon him. Hachiskavin lo, that you have to specifically have intention for the person who got killed. Boshes nami, we say the same thing by embarrassment. Ad mechavin le, that you have to have intention for the person who got embarrassed. Dichsev, as the Apostle says, V'shilcha yodo ve'echziko b'mevusha. Like we learned the other day, where it says by embarrassing that she sends her hand and she grabs his junk, as was explained by our good friend Foley Tessler, Reb Foley Tessler. Hachiskavin lo, you have to have intention. She has to have intention for his junk, not somebody else's. La'olam Reb Yehuda. Therefore, so what's pshat? So what's pshat, Chaver? What's pshat? We have a brisa, and the brisa doesn't apparently have an author. It's not Reb Meir, it's not Reb Yehuda, it's not Reb Shimon. Okay, no. So where are we? So La'olam Reb Yehuda. So really, it is Reb Yehuda. Okay, but I thought we said Reb Yehuda says that Avodim doesn't have boshes, and we're saying that if he intended to embarrass an Eved, but he embarrassed the Ben Chorin, you pay the Ben Chorin the boshes of the Eved. I thought Eveds don't have boshes. Yeah, when an Eved doesn't have boshes, it means you're never going to give boshes to an Eved, but we're not talking about giving boshes to an Eved. We're talking about you intended to embarrass an Eved, and then you ended up embarrassing a Ben Chorin. So what we do is we evaluate how much the boshes would be for an Eved, and then we pay it to the Ben Chorin. We're never actually going to pay boshes to an Eved, but we're never actually going to pay boshes to the Eved. We're never actually going to pay boshes to the Eved, but we could still evaluate what the boshes would be, and then we give it to the Ben Chorin. Be by saying, alternatively, I feel Tim Reb Meir. You can even say it's Reb Meir. You can even say it's Reb Meir because misavat gadol ben chasim kaim ben chasim ha. Meaning the reason why we said that it can't be Reb Meir is because we're saying that he intended to embarrass a Kain and he ended up embarrassing a Gadol, so we give the Gadol the embarrassment of the Kain imply, and we want to say that Kain means that he doesn't have a lot of wealth, and a Gadol is that he is very wealthy, and we're saying that they have different bosheses, and therefore it can't be Reb Meir. The thing is, right, because Reb Meir says everybody's boshes is the same, but what if we say that Gadol and Kain isn't talking about how wealthy you are, it's talking about, what's it talking about? It's simply talking about if you're young or old, and we're saying so. I guess like if you're all, I guess all young people have the same boshes, and all old people would have the same boshes. There's no distinctions, right? So if you take Reb Meir, misavet gadol ben chasim kaim ben chasim. Do you think that when it says gadol it means a wealthy fellow and a kain means an unwealthy fellow? Lo gadol mamish kain mamish. That we're talking about an adult and a minor. But I guess all adults would have the same boshes. V'kain by boshes who is a minor capable of experiencing boshes that they would have to be paid for boshes in yo. Kidamer Papa, like what Papa says, the mikam that he's old enough that he can experience embarrassment even though he's still a kain. Hachanami the mikamu lei mikalim. So here as well, we're talking about a scenario where the young fellow is old enough that he can experience embarrassment. Okay. Says the Mishnah, Hamavayish es ha'orim. Ho ho. A fellow embarrasses a fellow who's naked. Chayiv. Okay, he's got to pay him. Now, the boshes for somebody who's naked is not the same as the boshes for someone who is clothed. If he embarrassed the fellow in the bathhouse where he's naked, chayiv. And it's different embarrassing a person in a bathhouse than embarrassing him in Shuk Machne Yehuda. Omar Mar, we said what? Oh wait, what? Wait, where? What? Oh yeah, what? Wow. All right, back up. Mishnah. What? Dude, what just happened? Okay, Mishnah. Somebody who embarrasses somebody who's naked. Somebody who embarrasses somebody who's blind. Somebody who how did I skip this? Somebody who embarrasses somebody who's sleeping. Chayv. In all these scenarios, chayv. V'yoshin shabiyesh potter. A fellow who's sleeping and embarrasses somebody in his sleep, potter. Okay. So somebody who fell off of a roof and landed on somebody and hurt the person and embarrassed the person. So chayv al nezek. So the faller off for a roofer he's going to be chayiv for nezek, but he's going to be potter for boshes. Read the Agos Abach. Shenemar, the Apostle says, "V'shulcha yoda v'yachzik b'mevushav," that she sends her hand and grabs his junk. Eino chayiv al aboshes ad she'yeh miskaven. That you only chayiv for boshes when you have specific intent. Just like when the wife had specific intent for that for this guy's junk. Okay. Finally, now says the Gemara. Taner Rabbanan. The Rabbi said, Bisho Arim, if a fellow is mevayish somebody else and he's naked, chayiv. Okay, v'nidoma to Bisho Arim, the Bisho Lavush. Now it's different if you embarrass a person who's naked to if you embarrass a person who's clothed. Bisho beveis hamerchotz, if you embarrass a fellow in the bathhouse, chayiv, you can be chayiv. V'nidoma Bisho beveis hamerchotz, the Bisho b'shuk. And it's different if you embarrass somebody in the bathhouse to if you embarrass him in Shuk Machne Yehuda. Omar Mar, sounds like deja vu, huh? Omar Mar, we said earlier, Bisho Arim chayiv. If you embarrass a naked fellow, you're chayiv. Arum by boshesu, I don't understand. A fellow's walking around naked. How do you say naked in Yiddish? It's probably a good word for it. Akoponim. So you embarrass the guy. He's walking around naked. You can embarrass the guy. He's embarrassing himself. I mean, it seems like somebody who's not particularly prone to embarrassment. My papa says, my arum. What does it mean arum? To asa zika karchinu limone. It's talking about a scenario where there was a gust of wind that blew up his clothing, and also who dalinu tvei uvishe. So he was already kilu. I don't know. The wind like blew his clothing, so he already got exposed. I get, and then this person came and exposed him even more. So that's what we're talking about. Bishav beis hamerchotz. Right. So therefore, there is embarrassment there. Bishav beis hamerchotz. If you embarrass somebody in the beis hamerchotz chayiv. Beis hamerchotz by boshes, who? What, is he going to be embarrassed in the bathhouse? He's walking around there naked. He doesn't seem to be care. So Papa Shabisha al Gavanor. Well, again, similarly, he was bathing by the river, and because he was bathing in a public area, he was wearing clothing, and then I guess also he was exposed himself to I don't know, maybe bathe or whatever, and then the person came and exposed him even more and embarrassed him. So that is what we are talking about. Boi Reb Abba Bar Mamu. So Reb Abba Bar Mamu asks, Akasha, Bisho Yoshen Vames. You hear this? If you embarrass a fellow who's sleeping and then he dies in his sleep. You hear that? So you embarrassed him, but he never actually experienced the embarrassment because he died in his sleep. Mao, what's the halacha? My kami baile, what are we asking? Amr Zvir Achi kami baile. This is what he's asking. Mishum Kisufa, who do we say, well, it's about the embarrassment. For a mislay, but he died. For like Sufi, he never had an opportunity to be embarrassed because he was sleeping. He didn't realize he was something embarrassing was happening to him, and then he died. He never experienced any embarrassment. Or perhaps mishum zilusahu. Yeah, but maybe it's about sort of it's degrading to the person to embarrass him like that. Ozle, and he degraded the person, even if he died. He just still did something degrading to him. Toshma coming here. Rameir Omer says Rameir cheresh v'koin yesh lohem boshes. That a cheresh and a koin they have boshes. Shota ein lo boshes, but a shota, if it's a cheresh is a deaf person, a shota is a foolish person. Ein lo boshes. A shota does not have boshes. I omart bishlama. So I understand mishum zilusa. So I understand if you say it's about, what was the word I used? About if it was what was the word I used? I used a decent word, I think. Degrading. I think that's what I think that's a good word. So if you say it's about degradation, so hainu dikatani koin. So I understand why we're saying that you'd be chayiv for embarrassing a kohen. Meaning a kohen would not get embarrassed, although we're going to see, right, we just saw a few minutes ago, Papa says, well, maybe there could be an age where he's old enough to get embarrassed. Let's assume for now that he's too young to experience embarrassment, but it's still degrading what you're doing to this fellow. So I understand if we're saying that if you embarrass a kohen, you're chayiv because it's degrading. Mishum kisufa, but if it's about embarrassment, kohen bar boshasu, is a kohen going to get embarrassed? So elamai mishum zilusa. Okay, but if we're saying that it's about degradation, afilu shoite nami. Well then, if you embarrass a shoite, even though he doesn't realize that he's getting embarrassed, but it's still degrading, so ame shote ein l'chaboshes gadol mizo, that simply being a shote is in and of itself, I guess, embarrassing, and you're not going to make it any worse. Mikomakom nifshot mina. Okay, so let's say the mishum zilusa that it's about degradation. Di mishum kisufa, because if it's about embarrassment, katan bar kisufa is it possible for a katan to get embarrassed? No, therefore it must be about degradation. But we say no, maybe a katan can get embarrassed. Kedamar Papa, like our Papa says, the mikal mulei umikalem, that if he's old enough that he can get embarrassed, you could say here as well that when we're talking about a katan getting embarrassed, a katan who's old enough to experience embarrassment. Okay, fine. So we can say that it's talking about actual embarrassment. Fine. Rapape then says that actually what I guess Rav Bar Mamal is asking about is not about embarrassment versus degradation, but mishum kisufa didei hu v'amayis lei odilma mishum boshes mishpache. Right? That meaning, like we said before, is it that the fellow himself is getting embarrassed in his sleep, but he dies in his sleep, so he never actually gets embarrassed? Or do we say not about degradation of the fellow, but degradation of the family? Boshes mishpach, it's embarrassing for the family what these people are doing to this fellow who ended up dying in his sleep. Tashma kamanir cherish v'koin yesh lo boshes. A cherish and a koin have boshes. It's basically very similar to this whole back and forth that we had a minute ago. A shota ain't lo boshes, but a shota does not have boshes. A fool does not have boshes. I understand if it's about the embarrassment to the family. So that's why it says a kohen, meaning a kohen himself won't experience embarrassment, but it's embarrassing to the family if you embarrass this young fellow. But if it's about embarrassing the young fellow, kohen bar boshes, who does a young fellow get embarrassed? Mishum boshes the b'nei mishpacha. So what are you going to tell me then, that it's about embarrassing the family? Afilu shoyte nami. But then we should say the same thing by a shoyte oichet, that if you embarrass a shoyte, it's embarrassing to the family. Shoyte ein l'chaboshes gedola mizo, like we said earlier, that a shota, being a shota, is in and of itself embarrassing to the family, I guess, and you're not going to make it any worse. So let's say that the mishum boshes mishpache, that we're talking about the embarrassment to the family, the mishum kisufa kohen bar kisufa hu, because if it's about embarrassment, that wouldn't make a sense, because a kohen can't be embarrassed. Amar a papa says a papa yes, he can be embarrassed. The mikam mulei mikalim, that as long it could be a minor who's old enough to experience embarrassment. V'atanya, as we learn in the Brisa, Rabbi Yomer says, Rabbi cherish yesh lo boshes. Shota ain't lo boshes, that a cherish has boshes, a shota does not have boshes. Kohen paimim yesh lo, paimim ain't lo, whereas a kohen sometimes he has boshes, sometimes he does not. Hod mikamule mikalim, hod mikamule v'lo mikalim. That it depends if he's old enough that he can experience embarrassment or not. Okay, so it sounds like sounds like it's not entirely clear necessarily if we're talking about if the person experiencing the embarrassment or the degradation or to the families, it's not entirely clear, I guess, if you'd be chayav or potter for embarrassing a fellow who's sleeping and then he dies. I don't know, unless maybe we're saying that Taka, it is talking about the embarrassment and therefore he dies and he doesn't get embarrassed. Alright. Hamavayishis asuma. Okay, so we had said that a fellow who embarrasses a blind person is going to be chayiv. Maslisim delok Rabbi Yehuda. And we're saying that, as we said earlier, our Mishnah is not like Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Omer suma ein lo boshes. Because Rabbi Yehuda says that a blind person does not have boshes. And we said that means that if a blind person embarrasses somebody else, he will be potter. And our Mishnah had said that only somebody who's sleeping who embarrasses somebody else is potter, implying that the Tana of our Mishnah would say that a blind person who embarrasses somebody else would be chayiv, but Rabbi Yehuda says a blind person who embarrasses somebody else would be potter. So our Mishnah cannot be Rabbi Yehuda. V'chachai Rabbi Yehuda potter michayiv golius. And Rabbi Yehuda would also say that a blind person is potter from going to an ir miklat if he kills somebody by accident, and michayiv malchus. And he would not be chayiv lashes. Michayiv misas bezdin. He would never be chayiv capital punishment. My time to Rabbi Yehuda says that Gomer einecha me'edim zom min ha. Because we learn out einecha, meaning when we say that a blind person would be potter from boshes, because we learn out gzeir shava of einecha. It says v'katzos says kapel osachos einecha. By boshes it says einecha, and also it says by edim zom min einecha. Mahosam sumin lo, afkan sumin lo. Just like by Edim Zomimim, they are potter from a suma would be potter by Edim Zomimim. How come? Where am I? Okay. Okay. So by Edim Zomimim, because it says einecha, so therefore it would exclude a suma, and the same thing would apply to boshes. Okay, fine. Mahasim sumin lo, afkan avocha sumin lo. Okay, so just like by Edim Zomim, it would not apply to blind people. Are blind people able to be Edim in general? I don't know. We're saying that you can't. They definitely can't be Edim Zomim, and also not by boshes. Michai v'golios. So also a blind person would be potter from going to an ir miklat. The Tanya is we learn in the Brayso below re'os, that by an ir miklat, right, meaning when somebody kills somebody by accident, right, what does the pasuk say? The pasuk says, O b'chol even asher yamus ba below re'os v'yapel olav v'yamos v'ulo oyev lo v'lo mevakish also. Okay, so it says in the context of somebody who kills somebody by accident and therefore has to go to the city of refuge. So it says that below Re'os he didn't see him, implying that in this case he didn't see him, but in other case he would have seen him. He's not blind. Prat l'suma, to the exclusion of somebody who's blind and never would see anybody. Rabbi Yehuda, that's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Rabbi Meir Omer l'rabos is a suma. Rabbi Meir says that actually it's coming to include that even a blind person goes to an ir miklat. My time Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda says to exclude a suma, a blind person. Look, when it says in the scenario of an ir miklat, somebody who has to run to a city of refuge, it says, I'm reading the pasuk, that somebody goes to chop down wood in the forest. Okay, so it says by a fellow who kills somebody by accident, and he has to go to the city of refuge. They were talking about a fellow who went to the woods to chop down wood, and then this thing happened, and somebody died, now he has to go run to the city of refuge. So that would include anybody who goes to chop down wood, even a blind person. Because of Achman, below Re'os, when the pasuk says below Re'os that he didn't see, Nemute, that is coming to exclude a blind person. That is talking about a person who in this case he didn't see, but in other cases he would have seen, but a blind person never sees. For America, because of Achman, below Re'os, Lemute, Whereas Reb Meir says that when it says below Ra'os that he doesn't see, it's going to exclude a blind person. And the Torah also says bivli das, without seeing. That's also a miut, right? Without knowledge, right? So without seeing, without knowledge, we have two miuts, two withouts. Have a miut achar miut. That's a miut. It's an exclusion after an exclusion. Ve miut achar miut elu l'rabos. And when you have a double, right? Double negative is a positive. You have two miuts. It's actually a including, and it's going to include a blind person. Rabbi Yehuda ahu bivli das prad lemiskaven hu de'asa. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda said when it says bivli das, without knowledge, it's the exclusion of with knowledge. So if somebody intentionally killed somebody, then he doesn't go to near miklat. He's chayiv misa. Chayiv misa is bezdin asir rotzeach michayve galius. And in terms of Rabbi Yehuda saying that a suma, a blind person, would be patur from capital punishment because it says rotzeach by capital punishment and it says rotzeach by a city of refuge. So just like he's patur from city of refuge, he's patur from capital punishment. Mechayve malkias, and he's also patur from lashes. Also Rasha mechayve misus bezdin. Says Rasha by lashes and says Rasha by chayve misus bezdin. And just like a suma is patur, or it does not get capital punishment, he also doesn't get lashes. Tanya idach, we learn in another brayso. Rabbi Yehuda says Rabbi Yehuda, suma ein lo boshes. That suma does not have boshes. Also, Rabbi Yehuda would say that he's patur from all halacha, I guess all judgments, from ever having to go to bezdin, for ever being chayiv for any dinim in the Torah. My time, Rabbi Yehuda says that Amrukah, the pasuk says v'shaftu ha'eda, that the Eda, the congregation, judges bein makeh uvein goyel adam, between the smiter and the avenger of the blood. Ala mishpatim ha'ele, on these laws. Somebody who is shaykh to the halachas of your miklat, so yeshno b'mishpatim, so that's also somebody who's shaykh in mishpatim, right? It says ben ha'makeh u'ven goyel adam ala mishpatim ha'ele. So somebody who's shaykh to makeh and goyel adam and your miklat and these things, so then he's also shaykh to mishpatim and dinim. Kol she'enu b'makeh v'goyel adam enu b'mishpatim. But if he's not shaykh to these halachas of makeh and goyel adam and your miklat, these things, so he's not shaykh to dinim bichlal. Tani idach, we have another brayso. Rabbi Yehuda Omer says Rabbi Yehuda suma ein lo boshes, that a suma doesn't have any embarrassment. V'chein Rabbi Yehuda podrim mikol mitzvahs amuris bater. And as we've seen before, this is a Gemara, this is interesting Gemara, we've seen it before, that Rabbi Yehuda says that a suma is patur from all of the mitzvahs in the Torah. Rav Shisha Breid, Rav Idi, my time with Rabbi Yehuda on my crop, because the pasuk says, Beila mitzvah achukim v'amishpatim, that this is the mitzvahs, the chukim and the mishpatim, kol sheyeshnu b'mishpatim. Anybody who's mishpatim, we just said a minute ago that the suma is patur from mishpatim according to Rabbi Yehuda. Yeshnu b'mitzvahs v'chukim is also shaykh to mitzvahs and chukim. V'chol she'enu b'mishpatim, enu b'mitzvahs v'chukim. And a blind person who's not shaykh to dinim and mishpatim, so he's oichet not shaykh to mitzvahs bichlal. Rav Yosef, now says Rav Yosef, and Rav Yosef, as we know, from a few places, but I think specifically from Masechta Nedarim, that he was blind. So Mereish Ava Amina. So it says of Yosef, initially I would have said, Man da Amar Halacha Rabbi Yehuda, that whoever would tell me that the Halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda, the Amar Suma Patur Mina Mitzvahs, that a Suma is Patur from Mitzvahs, a blind person like me is Patur from Mitzvahs, Ka'avdina Yom Tav L'Rabbanan. I would have made a big Givaldiga Yom Tif for the rabbis. What do they do on this Yom Tif? What do they do on this Yom Tif? I don't know. But basically, Rav Yosef, it would have been the happiest Rav Yosef in the world if you would have told him that the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda, that the suma is part of mitzvahs. My time outcome, Dilo mafkadina v'kavdina mitzvahs. Because I don't need to be doing the mitzvahs, and yet I'm doing them anyways. Right? And I must be getting so much schar. The hasha, the shmoyis, the Hadar Rab Chanina, but now that I heard the following statement of Rab Chanina, that it's greater for somebody who's is commanded to do something and they do it, that's greater than somebody who is not commanded to do it but does it anyways. So now, Manda Amrli ain halacha Rabbi Yehuda of Dina Yom Tav L'Rabbanan. Now, if somebody tells me that the halacha is not like Rabbi Yehuda, I'll make a big yom tiv for the rabbis. My time I'll come to come afkadina. Isli agra tfei, because dechim afkedino isli agra tfei, because if I am commanded to do something, I'll get more schar. So if the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda, that assume is parter for mitzvahs, then I'm parter for all the mitzvahs. Then I'm not commanded to do the mitzvahs. I won't get the schar for doing the mitzvahs. If you tell me that halacha is not like Rabbi Yehuda and that I am chayiv in all the mitzvahs, I would be very, very happy. Chevre, that was the pei vav of Masechta BavaKama. I think it was a long one. I don't think it's over an hour, but I think it's coming up on it. We learned a lot of stuff. 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 Oh my gosh, what did we learn? We learned a lot of stuff. 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 A lot of stuff about Nezek, Tsar, Ripo, Shevis, but we learned about everything. Peace.